Welcome back, everybody, to another week of Sunday School here at the Lighthouse Church of the Nazarene in Moravia, Iowa, where we are going through the book of Isaiah. And this week we are in Isaiah chapter 47. Now, Isaiah chapter 47 deals with the downfall of Babylon. But the interesting thing is, Babylon has not even risen to the world power yet. Assyria is still the dominating world empire. So, at the time of Isaiah's writing right here, where we're talking about Babylon, Babylon isn't even the world power yet. Now, real quick, let's go over it. We've talked about the city of Babylon before. Now, there was a historian named Herodotus, and Herodotus actually wrote about the grandeur of the city of Babylon. It was roughly 100 square miles. It had 300-foot walls that were 80 feet wide that they would have chariot races on all around the city. Now, there was a moat all the way around the city, more than 100 brass gates. There was a huge tower right in the middle of the city of Babylon. And also, the Euphrates River ran right down the middle of the city. Now, one thing that we know about the city of Babylon is it had one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world in it, and that was the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Perhaps you've heard of them. Now, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, they were actually built by Nebuchadnezzar, and the reason that he built them is because his wife was homesick, and she actually missed the greenery of the mountains from where she came because Babylon was just flat. So Nebuchadnezzar actually built the Hanging Gardens of Babylon just to comfort his wife. Wasn't that nice of him? So that's what we're talking about this week in chapter 47, the downfall of Babylon. So we're in Isaiah chapter 47. Let's just get out our Bibles. Let's follow along. We're in Isaiah chapter 47, verse 1, in which God says, "Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground without a throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for you shall no more be called tender and delicate." Now, what's the idea here? He's calling Babylon the virgin daughter. Well, the idea of this is it was a virgin city. It was a city that had not yet been breached. The walls had not been penetrated. The city had not been conquered. That's why it's called a virgin city right here. Now, so the idea is this is a lady living in high luxury, but it is going to be brought low. So that's kind of the metaphor here for the city of Babylon. You're a high, exalted lady, but guess what? You're about to be brought low. So verse 2. "Take the millstones and grind meal. Remove your veil." So you're going to have to start working. You are no longer going to just be able to live in high luxury. "Take off the skirt, uncover the thigh, pass through the rivers." Verse 3. "Your nakedness shall be uncovered. Yes, your shame will be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not arbitrate with a man." So a couple things here. Let's just talk about it. Number one, pride always goes before destruction. That's what the Bible tells us. Proverbs 16:18 says, "Pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall." Pride, what is that? Thinking too highly of yourself, thinking only of yourself, being arrogant. James 4:6 says, "God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble." Jesus said, it's Matthew chapter 23, verse 12. Jesus said, "Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, but whoever humbles himself will be exalted." God is really good at humbling proud people, and we see all sorts of examples throughout the Bible. Remember Herod Agrippa from Acts chapter 12? He was sitting there getting the praises of men. They were saying the voice of God and not of a man, and God struck him right there. Nebuchadnezzar, he was brought low in a hurry. Pharaoh of Egypt, God brought him low. So God is really good at humbling proud people. So these proud people of Babylon, they're going to be humbled. Another thing I want to show you here in verse 3, notice how it says, "Your nakedness shall be uncovered." Many times when nations would conquer other nations, they would actually strip the people that they captured, they would strip them naked and do a forced relocation march back to the homeland as a way to humiliate them. So that could be what that's talking about right there. And then I want to show you this. At the end of verse 3, notice how it says, "I will take vengeance." We need to remember this. God will take vengeance. Let God fight our battles for us. Romans chapter 12 tells us, "Repay no one evil for evil." For God says, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay." In the 51st chapter of Jeremiah, it says, "For the Lord is a God of retribution. He will repay." Think about it. If someone attacks us, we can spend a lot of effort defending ourselves, or we can just let God defend us. And we don't have time to fight every battle in our own strength. Just let God do the defending. We see a great example of this from King Hezekiah. Do you remember when the Assyrians were coming against him and Sennacherib was sitting there boasting against the city and telling them what he's going to do? What did Hezekiah do? He didn't even answer him. He just went and prayed to God. He took the letter from Sennacherib and spread it before God and just prayed to God and let God fight his battles for him. All right, let's keep going here. Verse 4. "As for our Redeemer, the Lord of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel." Now, if you remember when we were going through the book of Job, what did Job say? Job said, "I know that my Redeemer lives." Who is the Redeemer? The Redeemer is the one who pays the price. He pays the ransom to set one free. Who's our Redeemer? Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ paid the price for us so that we can be found right before God. It really is that simple. All right, let's keep going here. We're in verse 5. "Sit in silence and go into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for you shall no longer be called the Lady of Kingdoms." Now, notice the play on words here. It says, "You shall no longer be called a lady." Back in verse 1, it says, "You shall no more be called tender and delicate." Now, there was a country music singer. His name was Ed Bruce back in the 70s and 80s. And he had a song, and it was talked about there's girls, there's women, and there's ladies. And what is this being talked about right here? God's telling Babylon, you shall no longer be called a lady. Well, a lady, what is a lady? A lady is probably a female equivalent of a gentleman is probably a good way to put it. Someone who has good manners, someone who is polite. It's a woman that you'd want to take home to mom and come into your family and raise your children for you. That's what a lady is. Now, I've heard it said, all ladies are women, but not all women are ladies. So what is God saying here? God's saying you are no longer going to be called a lady. You are about to be downgraded. You're going to go from a lady to a bondservant. That's the play on words here, and that's what God is saying. Now, in Revelation chapter 17 and 18, we find a future world empire, which is called Mystery Babylon. And Mystery Babylon is not referred to as a lady. What is Mystery Babylon referred to? Mystery Babylon is referred to as a harlot, and actually the mother of all harlots is what that is. So let's keep going here. Verse 6, God says, "I was angry with my people. I have profaned my inheritance and given them into your hand. You showed them no mercy. On the elderly, you laid your yoke very heavily." Now, this is interesting right here. God is explaining to the Babylonians why he is mad at them. He first starts and says, "Hey, I was angry with my people, the Jews, the people of Judah." God's telling Babylon, "I was angry with my people, so I allowed you to overtake them as a form of punishment." But then he says, when you had them, you showed them cruelty. So that's why God is mad at the Babylonians. He's saying, I gave them to you and you showed them no mercy. Now, we can actually read about this. When the Babylonians overtook the men of Judah, you read about this in 2 Kings chapter 25. They took King Zedekiah, and do you know what they did before? They executed his two sons, right in front of him, and then they gouged his eyes out so that the last thing he ever saw on this earth were his two sons being killed in front of him. And then he took them all away. So God says, I'm mad at you guys because you showed no mercy to my people. There's a lesson here. Treat others the way you wanted to be treated. It's the golden rule. We find it in the Bible, Matthew chapter 7. Treat others how you want to be treated. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. For this is the law and the prophets. That's the way Jesus said it. In the book of James, it tells us judgment is without mercy to the one who shows no mercy. Let's keep going here. Verse 7. And you said, this is talking about the Babylonians, I shall be a lady forever, so that you did not take these things to heart, nor remember the latter end of them. Now, this is just prideful. The Babylonians saying, oh, nobody can conquer us. We're untouchable. We'll be a lady forever. We need to remember this. Nothing lasts forever except God. The Bible tells us the grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God endures forever. Remember, when this life comes to pass, Only the things done for the Lord will last. Everything you're looking at right now, it's all temporary. It's all going to be burned up. Verse 8, therefore hear this now, you who are given to pleasures, who dwell securely, who say in your heart, I am, and there is no one else besides me. Now that I am right there, God said, I am who I am. I am the I am. There seems to be a play on words there, like you think you are God. I shall not sit as a widow, nor shall I know the loss of children. Now, saying, therefore, you who are now in pleasure, in the book of Amos, it's Amos 6:1, it says, woe to those who are at ease in Zion. Right here, the people living in luxury, those living in luxury without a care in the world. If that doesn't apply to us today, I don't know what does. We Americans were the richest people to ever exist throughout the history of the world. And we know luxury and ease like past people have never known. But remember, God has a way of awakening people who need to be awakened and humbling people who need to be humbled. So, woe to those who are at ease, right here. Therefore, those who are living in luxury and have pleasures, it's going to come upon you. Then listen to this, verse 9. But these two things shall come to you in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon you in their fullness because of the multitude of your sorceries, for the great abundance of your enchantments. Notice how quickly life can change. It says, in a moment. When we talk about Mystery Babylon in the future, it says it's going to be destroyed in 1 hour. We need to remember, circumstances can change so fast. We think, oh, everything will just keep going like it's going. We could turn on the news one day and find out that life's going to be very different. Security, status, money, peace, abundance, all those things are very, very fragile. World empires, that they can vanish in an instant. One thing I want to talk about right now, we're talking about the downfall of Babylon back in 500 BC, roughly around there. 2,500 years ago, would that be right? No. Yeah. So anyway, we're talking about the downfall of Babylon way back when. In the book of Revelation, we read about a world empire or a city or something referred to as Mystery Babylon, which is something in the future. But the parallels between this Babylon and Mystery Babylon, the Babylon of the future, they're uncanny because in Revelation 18, it talks about Mystery Babylon and they say, I sit in luxury, I will never mourn. Just like these guys right here saying, oh, nothing will ever happen to me. Then in Revelation chapter 18, it talks about how in one day, in 1 hour, will come its downfall, and all the merchants of the earth will sit there and mourn because they all made themselves rich off this Mystery Babylon. Now, some people think that Mystery Babylon, which we read about in Revelation chapter 18, some people think it's the United States. Now, I don't know. It sure could be. Some people think it's actually Babylon revived, ancient city of Babylon that'll be rebuilt. The interesting thing, Saddam Hussein actually tried to rebuild the city of Babylon. He actually made a coin with his face on one side of it and Nebuchadnezzar on the other side of it, kind of comparing himself and saying, hey, I am the Nebuchadnezzar now. Now, that obviously didn't come to pass. But the interesting thing is, people that think that ancient Babylon is going to be rebuilt, if you go read Isaiah chapter 13, verses 19 and 20, it tells us that Babylon will not be rebuilt and will not be inhabited. So I don't think Babylon's going to be rebuilt because the Bible tells us it's not going to be rebuilt. Let's keep going here. Verse 10. For you have trusted in your wickedness. This would be the same, trusting in our money and all the stuff of this world. You have said, no one sees me. Your wisdom and your knowledge have warped you, and you have said in your heart, I am, and there is no one else besides me. Notice it says here, oh, no one sees me. People live their lives believing their sin goes unnoticed by God, but God notices everything. Jesus told us, if a sparrow falls to the ground, he knows about it. So people live our lives like God is blind to our self-centeredness, that we can just do what we want and God doesn't notice. No. The Bible tells us, Hebrews 4:13 says that everything is naked and open to the one that we must give account of. Matthew chapter 12, Jesus said, for every idle word men may speak, they will give account of it in the day of judgment. Let's keep going here. We're almost done. Verse 11, therefore, Evil shall come upon you. And remember, this evil is going to come upon them in one day. You shall not know from where it arises, and trouble shall fall upon you. You will not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon you suddenly, which you shall not know. Remember, it did come upon them suddenly. Go to Daniel chapter 5 and you can read about it. It came in one night. Verse 12. Stand now with your enchantments and the multitude of your sorceries in which you have labored from your youth. Perhaps you will be able to profit. Perhaps you will prevail. You are wearied in the multitude of your counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, and the monthly prognosticators stand up and save you from what shall come upon you. Behold, they shall be as stubble. The fire shall burn them. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. It shall not be a coal to be warmed by, nor a fire to sit before. Verse 15. Thus shall they be to you, with whom you have labored, your merchants from your youth. They shall wander, each one to his quarter. No one shall save you. Notice it says there won't even be a fire to warm yourself by. Everything you had, all the luxury, all the excess, it's all going to be gone. And there we are. We're done with Isaiah chapter 47, talking about the downfall of Babylon. Next week in chapter 48, we're going to go from Babylonians to God's own people, the nation of Judah, and talking about them and why he is not happy about them. So we're done for this week. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you learned something. I'll see you at the same time, same place next week. Bye.